Rewind Sports 60. From the city of big shoulders, the jewel of the Midwest, comes a sports show that's one of a kind. From iconic players to iconic stadiums to iconic teams, this is my kind of town. Chicago! And the Rewind Sports 60 is my kind of show. From Air Jordan to sweetness to Papa Bear Hallis, this city works hard, but plays even harder. Danny Carlino and Jerry Riles bring you the Rewind Sports 60. Live. The Rewind Sports 60 starts now.
Welcome, everyone, to the Rewind Sports 60, 8:28 a.m. at our WCPT studios. We are broadcasting live, and we're also streaming on Facebook as well on the Rewind Sports 60. So please join in on the conversation. Give us a call, 773-763-9278. And what a week it's been in sports. I'm your host, Lauren Cox, and I'm here with my phenomenal crew. Let me get right to it. I want to introduce Dan Marver, the marvelous one. How are you, Dan?
Great, I'm great, Lauren. Hi, how you doing? You know, I got a little confused today because I was going to go over to Wrigley Field for the ESPN Sunday night game because I had tickets for it, and I realized that I can't go. Darn it. But there was some interesting stuff. I was watching this overtime game just now where the Heat lost to the Bucks. The Bucks are about to be eliminated. They have the best record during the regular season.
Yes.
In the East, and I think overall, and they were minutes from being eliminated. But Jimmy Butler couldn't bring it home. And then another interesting thing in tennis, for you tennis fans, you know, Novak Djokovic, the number one player in the world, in the U.S. Open, which is being played at its normal time with no fans. He hit a referee, a linesman, with the tennis ball and was kicked out of the tournament, disqualified. So I thought that was kind of newsworthy that happened today. So those are a couple of big things today. And of course, you got baseball and hockey and everything else going on. It's crazy. They're going to have the playoffs for baseball, hockey, and NBA all at once this year in October.
Insanity. Yeah. Absolute insanity. And, you know, this whole dynamic with COVID-19 and how it's impacting sports.
Sure.
It's still business as usual because, you know, we've got a lot of cool things that happen in the NFL in terms of Cam Newton actually being named as the starter for New England. What were your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I think that it kind of made sense. I mean, he's the most experienced quarterback that they've got now in terms of the players that they had left. I mean, and of course in Chicago there was a decision made too that I'm sure we're going to discuss about quarterback. But Newton, I mean, I thought he might get the nod on that after all because his competition was not quite as experienced as him, and he's got some experience behind him, and you know, he's done well in the past, so you know, he might be able to bring New England back to where they were when they had the GOAT.
Absolutely, and so the debate is, and got to get your take on this in terms of who has more to prove. New England with Bill Belichick or Tampa Bay, because you know he just got Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette just signed a running back, former Jaguar, just signed a deal with Tampa Bay. So he's like loaded on all fronts now.
The thing I'm most amazed about is that they're going to be playing games starting Thursday. I didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, that's the most amazing thing to me. You're going to have Kansas City and Houston. But I think that if things go, you know, and they're able to complete the season, I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa wins their division. And New England's in not that strong a division, so they still might be able to eke it out with the Jets and Buffalo and Miami. You know, I think they still might be able to win their division and make the playoffs. And I think Tampa's a good shot in the south of the NFC too, because you know they've got Atlanta, who's pretty good, and Carolina and New Orleans. So I mean, I think each of them might be playoff teams this year.
Absolutely. And so who do you think has more to prove? Belichick or Tom Brady?
I mean, I think that Belichick's personality is such that I don't think it would he feels like he's anything to prove, you know, because he's not that humble a guy. So I mean, in that respect, I think that it'll be okay. But it'll be more interesting to see how Tampa does. I think New England will still be okay because of their weak division, but I think Tampa, you know, it will be interesting to see what happens with you know the GOAT in Tampa.
And then also, too, New England lost a lot of players.
Yeah,
I think like 6 of their players opted out due to COVID-19. How has this impacted the football from your landscape? I thought I would have heard of like more players being tested positive. I haven't heard much about like what's going on. They don't have bubbles, right? So
I mean, the bubbles have worked well with the NBA and the NHL. I mean,
absolutely.
But there's no bubbles in the NFL. So
and even at my son's school, they got a bubble, and everything is all good. So
yeah, so I mean that's the concern. I mean, you're going to have people opting out, and there may be even more, and hopefully there won't be any cases. So that will be a big factor in the season. So they're starting, like I say, on time Thursday. Kansas City and Houston are playing a game on Thursday night. So off we go. We'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And so, of course, we've got to talk about the biggest news coming down from Chicago and the Bears. The Bears have decided to go with Mitchell Trubisky as their starting quarterback. He edged out the win against Nick Foles. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he may have benefited from there being no preseason games, to be honest with you. If there had been preseason games, it might have gone a different way if there had been actual competition, because I don't know how they made the evaluation by up in Lake Forest. I have no idea, but I don't know. I honestly don't know how long they will last. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if it doesn't last more than a few weeks, but he gets the nod now, and that's definitely fodder for the sports writers this week. No question about it.
They said that Mitch worked really hard during the off season, and he had the advantage, obviously, of playing with these receivers for years and running backs, and they said that he was doing a lot of off-season work with them and really putting it in. Do you think that competition with Nick Foles breathing down his back, do you think that was motivation or what?
It might have brought Foles knows the system too, obviously from the coaching perspective. He knows that the Bears system. So it's hard to say without having to be able to watch them in preseason games as to what exactly happened. But it could be that his experience with the players and the off-season preparation made a difference. But with my own eyes, I can't see, so I don't know. You know what I mean? It's hard to say. Yeah,
absolutely. And then a lot of talk too, because obviously the Bears decided not to take Mitch up on that 5th-year option. He didn't agree to that, but Deshaun Watson, the Texas quarterback, as we know, he agreed to a 4-year, $160 million extension. Also, we know that huge deal that Patrick Mahomes got earlier in the year, $503 million for 12 years. Not chump change, right? Chump change. And both of those quarterbacks were picked before your beloved Bears quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky, whom they didn't even exercise the 5th-year option.
After him, not before him, after him.
Well, yes. What do you say about that? I'm just speechless.
Obviously, salary and whatnot should be based on performance, and so it's clear that those Mahomes and Watson have performed better. So they deserve more money in that respect, wouldn't you say?
Jesus. Yeah. The Bears have a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah, like in I Love Lucy. You got a lot of explaining to do.
We want to hear it. Jerry, are you
I'm good.
Are you back in business, brother?
Back in business.
All right. Well,
I'm trying to hang in there as best I can.
Okay. Well, we have the amazing Jerry Riles with us. The amazing one, Jerry. What's up?
Hey, how are you?
Give us the lowdown. What were your thoughts on the things that we talked about? The New England, Tampa Bay, the Bears. A lot going on.
Yeah, Cam Newton. It's this guy's got a lot to prove. There's no question about it. He had a lot of naysayers, a lot of doubters out there that feel that he is not going to play at the high caliber level that he has shown in the past. New England Patriots believe that he brings something definitely to the table, and if it's the system, this guy's going to have a heck of a year. Now, first and foremost, we have to say, let's pray that we have an entire 17-week schedule this year. Let's just pray that the flu season and the second phase of the COVID-19 coronavirus does not swoop in and just knock everything out the box. But if we're on pace to go throughout the regular course of the season, I'm expecting some big things from Cam Newton and the New England Patriots. Excuse me real quick.
Absolutely.
You're all choked up about this.
I'm all choked up. I don't know, but I'm looking for some big things as far as the National Football League is concerned. Now, when you bring it all home, Lauren, and you touched on it as far as 2 NFL quarterbacks that are getting paid big time. Obviously, everyone knows about Patrick Mahomes and the 10-year deal. He got $455 million. And, of course, coming off the Super Bowl, the MVP, the whole 9 yards. But now Deshaun Watson, as you talked about, Lauren, just gets a deal. And he signs a 4-year deal, guaranteed $111 million over the next 4 years. And the kid was choked up. He was really choked up because he said where he comes from in Georgia that a lot of kids don't make it out. And he made it out.
Did he ever?
And for the franchise to have the faith in him and believe in him and invest in him the way that they have, it really, really touched them to the core. And he let his emotions come out.
He earned it.
He certainly did.
How much guaranteed was it?
$111 million guaranteed.
Too. Are you kidding me?
But you know
I let my emotions show too. $111 million guaranteed. Is that like a record?
No.
Well, how much?
Mahomes is the record. Are you kidding me?
How much guaranteed did Mitch get? Did Mahomes get?
See, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Like he was crying. He was crying. Bear fans are crying. Bear fans are crying because those 2 quarterbacks were passed over for the great Mitchell Trubisky.
Somebody needs to be fired right now. They need to be fired right now.
Whoa. Those are fighting words, Lauren Cox.
I'm serious.
Those are fighting words.
Not one, but 2 of them ended up being once in a lifetime quarterbacks.
Did you hear Lauren Cox on the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT? She said somebody up there in Alice Hall needs to be fired. Listen, it's unbelievable. These 2 guys,
Jerry.
They were passed over for Mitchell Trubisky. They were passed over. Mitchell Trubisky, the Bears did not pick up his 5th option year. They said, no, the jury is still out. They brought in Nick Foles to compete for the quarterback position.
And Nick was acting like he was going to get it, too.
Well, he should have gotten it, but the Bears played it. The Bears are playing it smart. And it's unfortunate because the Bear fans, we have to endure all of this. The Bears are giving Mitchell Trubisky every ounce of breathing air that they can to justify that move. They said we've got to name him the starter because we drafted this kid. Yeah. So we have to have him start and give him one last chance. And Nick Foles is just sitting there chomping at the bit. Go ahead, do what you got to do. Because if we get this season through, I'm the starting quarterback for your 2020 Chicago Bears.
How many times are we going to have this conversation, Jerry? I feel like deja vu. I've heard you say this.
It's over. Lauren, it's over. Turn out the lights. The party's over. Hey, listen, I expect Mitchell Trubisky to come out game busters. Let me say this to you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the fastest hour in sports conversation. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, Lauren Cox, and the marvelous one, Dan Marver. When camp opened up a few weeks ago, Matt Nagy was asked the question, well, how does Mitchell Trubisky look? And this is when you can read between the lines and you read between the coaches speak. He goes, well, I'm not really sure. I really haven't had a real chance to take a look at Mitch, but he looks like he's made some type of improvement. I'm not really sure, so I don't want to say much about it. Let me tell you something. He was saying that this kid is done. This kid is done. I don't care how many, I swear to you, I don't care how many reps he's taken off season. I don't care how much film study he's watching. There's no substitution. There's no substitution for the real deal. And for your head coach to tell the media, I'm not really sure. I can't tell if, that's BS. Lauren, you've been with the show for over a year now, about a year or so, right? Marvelous. You've been on board for some time.
I'm vested.
Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. If someone's been a part of your program, your organization, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you certainly can tell if that person has progressed or not. You can tell. Yeah. This kid has not, I swear to you, and I told the great David Kaplan, the hardest working man in sports here in Chicago, I'm closing in on you, Cap, though. I told him, I said, hey, man, this guy, he's reached his ceiling. He's reached it. Kaplan said, no. Look at the numbers between Drew Brees when in his first 3-4 years in the league, and no, there's no comparison. Let me say this to you. I'm a Buckeye. I love the Ohio State Buckeyes. I bleed scarlet and gray. I don't want anybody to find out because I'm not looking to bleed, but this guy is Mr. Ohio in the state of Ohio.
Who?
Yeah. That's the question. Hey, Lauren, that's a great question.
Who are we talking about?
Mitchell Trubisky.
No,
God,
if he was that dynamic,
he's not. From
he
Ohio.
would have been. I'm sorry.
Trubisky went to North Carolina by the state.
Yeah. He. If he were, that's my point.
Okay.
If he were that good, he would have been playing on the roster for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Okay.
If he were that good, he would have been on the roster of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Well, obviously he's that good because he's the quarterback and he won his starting job.
Listen,
so
Bear fans,
don't that say that he's
Bear
good?
fans, and I want him to get the most out of his opportunity. I really do. But when you signed Deshaun Watson to a 4-year deal, when you signed Patrick Mahomes to a 10-year deal, and our Ryan Pace, the GM of the Bears, passed him up, there's, like you said, there's some splaining to do, Lucy. There's some splaining to do. It doesn't make any sense. And let me tell you something. We're the media. We're the fans. We haven't played the game. So maybe they see something that we don't see.
Oh, no.
Maybe they see something that we don't see. But I'm here to tell you. I am here to tell you. This guy, Mitchell Trubisky, he's reached his ceiling. There's nothing else left for him. When you have Patrick Mahomes tell the world after he won the Super Bowl as the MVP that he just started to learn defenses in the National Football League in week 8 and 9, that's a scary thought for Bear fans and Mitchell Trubisky. And I wish him all the best because I'm a Bear fan first and foremost. And I died with the Bears as far as football is concerned and sports are concerned here in this great city of Chicago that we live in. But the guy he's not the quarterback for the future as far as the Chicago Bears are concerned. And the old Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who was on with us back in April, said, and you remember this, Lauren, she said, hey, he's not going to the Hall of Fame. He's not going to the Hall of Fame. So, you know what? I wish Mitchell Trubisky all the luck. I wish the Bears, I think the Bears would do halfway decent because the defense, I think they've done a heck of a job. And let's hope that Matt Nagy has added a little bit more extra in his playbook. And he could be a little bit more versatile as far as the play calling is concerned.
Yes.
But with
Drop
David
those
Montgomery,
5 million plays.
with David Montgomery going down, that's going to hurt the running attack. But it's going to be interesting to see if we can get through this 17-week schedule as far as the National Football League is concerned. What is going to happen with this Bears football team? Ladies and gentlemen, she's Lauren Cox. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. We're going out to our TR60 hotline. And he laced him up for your beloved Chicago Bears way back in the day, and he's a product of the Chicagoland area. He played linebacker for the Chicago Bears from 78 to 1982, the era that I really enjoyed football, when the great Walter Payton laced him up and came on to the Windy City and turned the whole franchise upside down and showed that this is why we are the best as far as the league is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, he's on our TR60 hotline right now. He is Bruce Herron. He is a friend of the program. Bruce, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Hey, man, we that's a tricky question. That's a tricky question because Deshaun Watson just got paid. The Brinks truck just backed up to him. Now, we know what happened with Patrick Mahomes, but the guy that the Bears moved up one spot to take, they didn't even pick up his 5th-year option, man. So that's a tricky question to answer us. How we doing? We still don't know yet, man. How are you?
We're doing bad.
Well, you know what? I mean, truth be told, considering what Mahomes got, I think Deshaun Watson's underpaid. I'm telling you. I mean, man, the kid he's an unbelievable talent, man. He really is. He was that way in college. Now, for the Bears to have just forgot about what this kid did in college and go after Mitch Trubisky, who only had 1 year of college experience as a starter, to make him the first quarterback chosen. I'm telling you, man, it's unbelievable. I don't know. What can we say?
And that's the thing, Bruce. That's the thing.
Here's the deal about both of those quarterbacks.
Okay.
Both of those quarterbacks, throughout the time that they've been in the NFL, they've had some top-tier receivers around them. And I'm not so sure Mitch Trubisky has had that, but, I mean, that's beside the point because, truth to be told, I am not a Mitch Trubisky fan. I really am.
Why?
I'm not. I mean, I don't know how you can be. I mean, even with the receivers we have, I've seen passes underthrown, overthrown. I've seen passes thrown right and left. Seen passes many times thrown to the other team. You know, and it's just and you look back at the draft and you look at all of the talent that came out at the quarterback position, and the Bears moved up and gave up a number 1 pick to move up one spot to take this kid. And I tell you, at the time that they took him, I thought it was, I couldn't believe it. I thought they were moving up to take someone like Deshaun. I really thought they were going to take Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
they made Trubisky their pick. I just, I more than scratched my head. I turned the TV off, man. I couldn't take it anymore.
And that's the thing, Bruce. You played during a time where, obviously quarterback is probably the most important position in all of sports. And so you've had your fair share of playing against some great quarterbacks, obviously watching some great quarterbacks, and knowing the mentality of quarterbacks. So for you to scratch your head, and we've seen some crazy things happen on draft day. There's no question about it. We've seen some crazy things happen on draft day. But for this, man, this was mind-boggling. There's no question about it. So as far as the announcement of Mitchell Trubisky being named the starting quarterback leading into the 2020 season, what does that mean to you from a football perspective?
Have they actually decided that Mitch was going to be the starter?
Yeah, next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you, when during the off season, when we all knew that the Bears are going to bring in another quarterback to compete with Mitch, and then they made Nick Foles the choice, I should say. I was disappointed because I just felt like, okay, they're trying to for some reason satisfy the public, the big, the large base of Bears fans. And there is Cam Newton sitting out there who has proven time and time again, man, this guy is a talent, just a talent. And to not to even consider him, oh my goodness, man. I thought when they made Nick the choice, I just said, you know what? They don't want real competition for this guy. They really don't want real competition. And it was disappointing.
Yeah, very disappointing.
But at the same time, I'm not saying Nick Foles doesn't have what it takes to be successful. I mean, he's proven that he can take a team. But the other thing that I heard the other day watching ESPN was that one of the commentators were saying that, you know what, they thought all along that Mitch Trubisky was going to be the Bears starting quarterback when the season began, because Nick Foles has when he's been really successful, it's because he's come from the bench to replace the starter, whether it was through injury or whatever it was. And then he's taken the team and then become very successful. But as a starter, he hasn't been all that successful. And so, I listened to that and I said, well, maybe there's something to be said about that.
No, I think there is something definitely to be said, behind that, and it makes sense. I mean, I tell you, if you've been following the game long enough, if you've been involved in the game long enough, whether a player, a coach, or whatever the case may be, I truly believe you can read between the lines. And the Bears almost had no choice but to name this kid the starter because they put all their eggs in this one basket. They, meaning Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy inherited him, and so they're giving this kid every ounce of opportunity to say, okay, he is a serviceable quarterback on this level. Now, the insurance policy comes in Nick Foles. If Mitchell Trubisky does not succeed, if he goes down, if he gets hurt, like you said, and like they said on the network, that you know what? Nick Foles is great coming off the bench to take the team over from, the step from one point to the next. So it certainly makes sense. Bruce Herron on our TR60 hotline, former Chicago Bear linebacker, played with the Beloved for 5 years, joining us on the Rewind Sports 60.
Hey, Bruce, Lauren Cox here. So I wanted to ask, how are you? With everything that's going on, with the police brutality, the injustice, and the civil unrest, the players across the league, the NFL and the NBA, even the MLB, are really standing up and kind of voicing their concerns regarding everything that's happened. Not sure if you heard the Beloved's former coach, NFL legend Mike Ditka, in his comments when he told TMZ Sports regarding the players, the NFL players potentially kneeling, if you can't respect our national anthem, actually the NBA as well, if you can't respect our national anthem, get the hell out of the country. That's the way I feel were his statements. He was actually on the show last week, and we were able to ask him and kind of pick his brain in terms of what was your mindset? What was your mentality? So what were your thoughts? I don't know if you heard, but if you had, and now that hearing it, what are your thoughts on his take, stating that's the way he feels regarding players?
So let me ask you a question before I answer that. When you guys had him on your show, what was his response to that?
He said that's the way he feels.
Yeah, he stood behind it, and basically he was saying that the players make, he to me kind of diverted the issue, because he was like, the players make so much money, just focus on football, focus on the fact, and in NBA, focus on the fact that you're making all this money, and the country, basically saying their country afforded them not these opportunities and they should shut up and play, pretty much is what I got out of it. But he hung up on us, so we don't know for sure. Yeah, he hung up on us at a certain point.
Orangeberry one time.
He hung up on us, Bruce, and he, like Lauren said, he stuck to his guns and said, hey, you know what? Like she said, he said, hey, these guys are making a hell of a lot of money. They need to enjoy it and appreciate it, because this is the only place in this great country that we live in that you're going to make this type of money. And so they need to understand that and stick to it and appreciate it and enjoy it. That was his comment, and then he hung up.
That's hurtful. That's really hurtful. It's hurtful because you're saying that if an individual is playing in the NFL, that the only thing he should be concerned about is playing football. Are you kidding me? I mean, these guys have families, they have kids, they have mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, cousins all over the place, and they have friends. And so for an individual, just because the nature of your job, whatever that job is, say the guy was
a truck driver,
a banker.
Let's say he works at a grocery store and he bagged groceries. So this guy should concentrate on bagging groceries and forget about everything else. I mean, that's these guys' jobs. I mean, yeah, it's entertainment, but yeah, that's their jobs. So anybody who has a job, they need to shut up and just go along with the program? No. You know what? This stuff has been going on in our country for far too long. I mean, far too long. I grew up in South Texas. In a little town called Victoria, down between Houston and Corpus Christi near the Gulf. And I experienced, my family, we all experienced racism. But, I was talking to a buddy of mine last week, and he played professional basketball for a year or two. I think he played over Europe for a couple of seasons. But we were talking about this, and he said, as athletes, we had a pass. And I did too. I had a pass. Me and my brothers, I mean, we were all good athletes coming up through junior high and high school. We all played football. I played football, baseball, basketball, ran track, and I was all district in basically everything, because I was just a good athlete. I was a running back in high school and a quarterback. I didn't make it to become a linebacker until my sophomore year in college, where I grew and gained a lot of weight and got strong and stuff. But we had a pass. I mean, when you grew up in the South or grew up in areas where racism is really prevalent, and if you're a good athlete, you and your family, you kind of get a pass because they want to make sure that you're taken care of. They want to make sure that you're given every opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
And so, for and I tell you what, it's really hurtful for me to hear that about Mike Ditka, because I have a good relationship with Mike, and I've never had the conversation about racism in sports or anything like that with him. It's always been, hey coach, how you doing? I'm doing fine, Bruce. What you been up to? If I need to get an autograph from him on something for a charity that I'm working with, I can always call him and meet him at his country club or someplace, or just send him a ball or a jersey or something and get that autograph. And so that's pretty much the conversation. But to hear him come out and say that, I think that is not very bright.
Yeah, and I was disappointed. There were some people who were on both sides of the fence. Some people said we knew that Coach Mike Ditka was this type of person, this type of character. Others said they were surprised as well that he took the stance that he took. And I mean, I understand, Bruce, and you played back in the day, where players overall just they did their job and they did what they were supposed to do. They collect their paycheck and then they go on about their business. But this generation now is saying, hey, you know what, we got to pay attention, and we got to give credit to Colin Kaepernick, but they say, hey, we got to pay attention to, like you said, our brothers, our cousins,
right,
our nieces,
right,
and because this
or
is
them, because some of them have been experienced. Michael Bennett,
right,
Sterling. Both. I mean,
it's affecting them just as, and they say, hey, wait a minute, this is we've got some power here, and so we have to utilize it. And I think some of the old school way of thinking is like, no, that's not the protocol. That is not how this is supposed to work. But this new breed of athlete is saying, you know what, maybe that worked back in the day, but this is a new day, and we're going to turn the channel on this one, and that's what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, when people like Mike make comments like that, saying that guys need to concentrate on playing football, and you're disrespecting the flag, or you're disrespecting the anthem. Well, damn, the anthem, when you listen to the entire anthem,
mm-hmm,
you know what? It's a detriment to black folks. It doesn't, the Star Spangled Banner,
mm-hmm,
doesn't. Man, I'm telling you, you listen to all the words of the Star Spangled Banner, and I'm telling you, it makes you sick. It turns your stomach. It turns your stomach. Have you guys ever listened to the whole thing?
Of course.
Yeah. That's known.
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing. It's change is always difficult, and it's challenging. And those who have been in
change is only difficult. Change is only difficult when it appears that it's taking something away from people of a white race.
Mm-hmm.
When they feel like they've got to give up something in order to change, in order to accept change, they don't be against it. They just fight against it for the most part. Not everybody's like that, because I've got some rock solid friends that are white that they support this thing, and they understand fully where I'm coming from. I tell you, it's really disheartening. And then you talk about Brian Urlacher. You know what? I've always respected Brian Urlacher for his tenacity, his talent, because we went to the same University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and the guy was a beast in college. He was a strong safety,
mm-hmm,
and came to the NFL. They made him a middle linebacker, and he just took over and he performed. But for Brian to be in a locker room every single day of his life with black and brown and white guys, and having to attach, go shoulder to shoulder with each other, and to get out and perform and depend on each other and to hang out with each other, and Brian has a black son, and for him it's just I'm trying to be respectful when I talk, but sometimes it's just best, when you just, say how you feel and let it go. So, And I respect Brian for the ball player that he was, but I mean his words that comes out of his mouth when it comes to Black Lives Matter is just disheartening.
Hey, Bruce, this is Dan in the studio. I guess sometimes people should actually keep their thoughts to themselves in these times. These are tough times. But weren't you in the forefront of another issue regarding concussions a while back? I was reading. Wasn't that an issue that you were concerned about?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Me and I think 2 or 3 other former NFL players, we teamed up and hired this one attorney, and our cases were filed. One of the first cases filed, and my wife, who's a Cook County judge, she was the one who reached out to this attorney, and he took me on as a client, and we were the first ones. We were one of the first ones to file a case with the concussion protocol.
Yeah,
and I tell you, that too is a problem because the NFL, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, when the case was filed and the judge we all felt, and I personally felt that every player that played the game, when that case was settled, we all should have got a check of substantial dollars, whether we had CTE or not, because the league had data and proof that concussions was causing brain damage back in the 70s. And they never, ever allowed that information to filter down to the players.
Wow.
So the whole time I played as a linebacker, playing in the Buddy Ryan system, or playing in any system in the NFL, linebackers and defensive players were taught when you take on a block, put your face mask in their number. So we were taught to lead with our heads, regardless. And when I went through all the examinations, one of the doctors asked me, he says, "Well, how many concussions did you have?" Well, hell, I don't know. They didn't even call it concussions back then. They call it you got a ding, or you got got your bell rung. You sit out for a few minutes, and the trainer come over and break one of those little tabs of smelling sauce, and it burns your nose, and you gag a little bit, and you drink some water, and he'll have you sit there for a few minutes and come over and show you 3 fingers, 4 fingers, 5 fingers, 1 finger, 2 fingers, and all in the same sequence, 2, 3, 4, 5, and whatever number you come on, he'll say how many fingers, whatever number you come up, it was right, so it's time to go back in the game. I mean, you're ready.
Amazing.
Yeah, I would be on the sideline and say, "Where's here? Where's here? I need Aaron in here." But Freddie was his trainer. And he said, "Freddie, where's Aaron? Coach, he's not ready yet." God dang it, Freddie, get his ass ready. I need him in here. And said, "You ready to go?" I said, Yeah. Shit, we were trained, but you're not supposed to get hurt. You're tough. You're a football player. You break an arm, you break a leg. Shit, put some tape on it and get back in there.
Yeah, and that's, Bruce, thank you so very much for painting a vivid picture for those who may not be aware and understand the game that was played back in the day. And that's the thing about it, is the fact that as a young kid watching this and hearing this, you wanted to emulate that. And so you play at the high school level, the collegiate level, and, your mentality is, hey, in order for me to make it to that level, these are the sort of things that I need to do and I have to do so that I can succeed. I know, I won't give his name, but there was a former Bear player on the defensive side of the ball who told me when he was younger, Bruce, he said he would put a helmet on and he would bang his head up against the wall so that he could prepare himself to play in the National Football League. And, of course, he made it to that level. Jeez. But the mentality that went into...
Did this guy play for the Bears?
He sure did, but I won't give any names or anything like that. But
I know his name.
Okay. Well, we'll keep it. We'll keep.
He was a defensive back. Every time we made it, every time we were in on the tackles, you better stay down low.
Yeah.
Because that missile was going to come flying by any minute.
Exactly. And so I get the mentality because I lived a part of that mentality and understand it, but when you look back on it, it wasn't good and it wasn't right. And now a lot of players, and I told Mike Dicker this, I said, hey, Mike, you're in the forefront. You're the spokesperson for those players who are retired and they are suffering, whether it's a mental, physical, or both, deteriorating conditions. I said, it's the same way as Black Lives Matter and these ball players speaking up for the black and brown community because they don't have a voice. So you're doing exactly what they're doing, but on a different scale and a different level. And I don't know if it resonated with him or not, but that's where we are as far as this is concerned. Bruce, can we hold you for a minute? And I want to bring on somebody. You may be good, happy to hear from. Folks, this is the fastest hour in sports conversation. This is the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT 820 AM. It's Jerry Riles, Lauren Cox, and a marvelous one, Dan Marver. Let's go back out to our TR60 hotline. We got Bruce Herron on one, and we got the great number 8, who I loved this guy when I was a kid, and I even love him more so that he's on the line right now. Ladies and gentlemen, he's number 8 in your program, but he's dear and near in our hearts. He's the great old Vince Evans on our TR60 hotline. What's up, Vince? How are you?
Hey, doing well. How's everybody doing?
Say hello to Bruce Herron.
Take that bass out your voice, man.
Vince, say hello to Bruce Herron.
What's up, Bruce?
What's
up, my brother? Doing well. Sitting back here in this Southern California heat, man. We're looking at 115 in the shade.
Oh, my goodness, dude.
Hey, Vince, this is Dan in the studio. Don't you wish that you were playing this era?
I've been watching news about all those fires, man. That's got to be sad. That's tough. That is tough.
Well, it is, and it's kind of common news for Southern California, unfortunately. But during this time of the year, it's dry and it's hot, and it's almost like we've grown to expect that you're gonna get these fires this time of the year. But all they're doing right now is just really trying to contain them because you got wind plus heat plus these fires, which are just out of control. So hopefully they won't last too much longer.
Wow. Sad,
but how you guys doing, man? It's so good to connect. It's been a while. Bruce, I spoke with him maybe a couple of weeks ago. He and my brother and Otis Wilson, I think, were playing golf together, and just finished their round and had a chance to visit with him. We every time I think about Bruce, he brings a smile to my face because his personality is just he's so engaging and just has one of those infectious laughs that even if and he tells a lot of jokes. The thing about Bruce is he tells a lot of jokes, but they're not really funny. They're not really funny. They're not really funny jokes, but because he laughs with such hysteria, like it's the greatest joke in the world, you can't help but laugh.
Oh my gosh!
Oh man! Hey, listen, guys. When Benny and I were with the Bears, everybody in the locker room, practically everybody in the locker room, had a nickname. And you know what? They always called me Mr. Bruce because I was a upstanding citizen. Mr. Bruce.
Oh, stop it right now.
You agree with that one?
He's getting ready to go into that mode.
He had a nickname. He was like all world. He was like head. He was anything because he had this big old gigantic head. And I'm telling you, man.
Okay, so I see where we're going.
Well, you know what?
Whoa. You know I love you, brother. You know I love you.
Go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
We're on with the great Bruce Herron and the great invincible Vince Evans on our TR60 hotline on the Rewind Sports 60 WCPT 820 AM. One thing I have to share with you, Vince, is the fact that, and we appreciate you picking up the phone and joining us on this holiday weekend, Sunday, Labor Day, but you were a breath of fresh air and you were definitely ahead of your time because watching you quarterback the Chicago Bears back in the day, man. You had an incredible arm for a cannon as an arm, but your legs, man, you had sprinter speed as well, and you would do very well in this era today for sure, because your instinct on the football field, you knew when to find. Was it James Watt out there as far as your receivers? So James Scott, you were able to find your receivers when you needed to find them? Or you say, hey, I got to take off and I got to do whatever I can. And we loved it, but it seemed like back during that time, Vince, that black quarterbacks, you weren't a real quarterback if you ran, because you weren't a pocket passer. And I think it was like you had to fight that stigma. But nowadays, you see the boys, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or whether it's Deshaun Watson, they're playing the style of football you played way back in the day, man. What are your thoughts on what these kids are doing now and the paydays that they're getting?
They can get $500 million now.
Well, it's exciting to watch. It really is, and with great admiration do I watch these guys. You know, Deshaun and Russell and the kid there and Patrick Mahomes. They have such skill sets, and they're able to, with freedom, to utilize their athletic ability that they have, and it's the system has been set up that way for them to have that liberality to do things outside the pocket, because. You know, Bruce will tell you, being on the defensive side, the minute that quarterback, comes outside of the pocket, it throws off all of the defensive schemes that they have, because from a defensive standpoint, they're taught to go to certain lanes on the field, and that's predicated on the quarterback taking a 3 to 5 to 7 step drop. But if he does anything to alter that in any way, like come outside the pocket, it throws all the systems off. And that's where you can, see these guys make tremendous plays. So, it was a beautiful thing to be able to play in the National Football League and to play for the Chicago Bears. It was during a time where the coaches, I think at that time, it was something new for them. And I don't know that they really made the adjustments along the way, because their mindsets and their training had been predicated on the systems and the things that they have been taught. And so it was incumbent upon me to learn that system and try to adapt to that system the best that I could. But, when the system broke down, I felt like that was the time to try to make a play. That's what we on the offensive side get paid for, is to make plays, and be it with the arm or the legs, you just try to make things happen.
And you certainly did that. And again, as a young African American male growing up on the South Side in the city of Chicago, we look forward to watching you underneath center, calling, barking out the signals, man, because we knew something magical was going to happen, whether it's you, again, using your arm to hit your receivers, or if things broke down, you were going to use your feet. And, of course, that's what we did in the Sandlot, or wherever we played, we wanted to emulate Vince Evans, man. And it definitely was a treat to watch you play. And to me, again, it's a shame, but all things happen for a reason, because these kids nowadays, and you mentioned, they're backing up the Brinks truck, man. They are backing up the Brinks truck as far as what's going on in the National Football League. Regarding our Chicago Bears, we talked about the two guys, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, Vince, who got the big payday. But our guy, who we moved up one slot for, and Bruce definitely voiced his opinion about that move. What were your thoughts on the Bears getting Mitchell Trubisky and the fact that he is still fighting? Well, he's just rewarded the starting job, but he still have to compete for the starting quarterback position for the Chicago Bears.
Well, I understood that the Bears, had an opportunity to get Deshaun Watson and Mahomes, and I'm sure that the organization, as well as many Chicago Bear fans around the country, are scratching their head on that situation. But again, that's a decision that management and the scouting team decided to go with, and obviously they saw something in Trubisky that was going to fit in the scheme. I think he's got some talent. I think he was maybe thrown into the situation a little bit too soon. You could just feel like he wasn't completely ready. He's got some talent, like I said, and maybe now with the kid that they brought in as his backup, what's his name?
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles. Maybe that will elevate his focus, because when you have somebody that's breathing down your neck and you know that if you are not on your game, that Nick will come in there and put that pressure on you. So maybe that'll boost his confidence up or his focus, and maybe his play will be a lot better this year.
See, Vince, the name, this is the Rewind Sports 60, and we say real sports, real talk, just plain real. And I understand. You're trying to be diplomatic. You're trying to be PC, politically correct. Vince, you said it very well. The kid has some talent. Hey, Vince, I love you. And I respect you dearly. But I had some talent, too. But I didn't deserve to play in the National Football League, Vince. I didn't deserve to play in the National Football League because my talent level wasn't that high. I'm telling you. I know you have to be PC. You don't have to be. You choose to be. But this kid is not. He's reached his ceiling. He's reached his ceiling. And we just saw two guys who were passed over or who are locked in for the next 4 to 10 years with their respective clubs. Something's wrong, man, and I don't know what they saw. Real quick, in 10 seconds or less, man, what do you think the Bears saw in this guy that they wanted to move up one spot, give rid of the draft picks for this guy?
Well, again, he's got a strong arm. He's able to move outside the pocket. It doesn't necessarily mean that he has all of the attributes that it takes to be a top-level quarterback. I mean, there's a lot of guys that's got skill and got talent, but when you get on that level, the ability to go out there and make it happen is another intangible, but maybe that he hasn't reached yet. And that's why I want to give the kid the benefit of the doubt, like another year, just to see if a maturation process actually kicks in for him. Because I know he was, he came out of school early, I believe, and so he's really only been at that position for 2 years, and then he was hurt. So let's see how it pans out for him this year. I mean, and that's not to say, listen, the things that the Bears did to overshoot Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, I don't understand that. I don't understand that move, and I'm sure many people don't understand it now, looking back in retrospect. Yeah. Given the things that those guys have contributed at their particular teams. But again, they chose Trubisky. He's there. Let's see what he does this year, and see if there's some improvement that the kid can make.
We're on with former Bears quarterback Vince Evans. Vince, speaking about Trubisky being on his game, I believe you told the Undefeated that during the time that you came up, every single time you got in the game, you had to be damn near flawless, and that wasn't the case with your white quarterbacks. Speak to the discrepancy and how you were judged differently simply for the color of your skin back in that time and unfortunately in this time today.
Well, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to go back to the way that I was raised, okay? Because that was the catalyst that set the mindset for my thinking, not only on the professional level, but all the way throughout my life. I saw my mother and father, who were both educators. My mother was a home economics teacher. My dad was a principal and an industrial arts teacher. I can count on one hand the number of days in 35 years that they missed work. So they raised 4 young men. They were principled, orientated people. We had a regiment. We had discipline. And there was a structure in our household. I grew up doing segregation. I grew up doing integration. My parents always put in our minds that no one was better than you, and you were not better than anybody else. We were all part of God's creation, if you will. And so just taking that mindset And mind you, all of my coaches, with the exception of, Art Shell with the Raiders, they were all white. And so basically, like when I was at SC, I used to get hate mail all the time, using the N-word. If you go out there today, we're going to blow your brains out, yada, yada, yada. But I grew up with that. I had an orientation that we had to sit up in the balcony at the movie theaters and separate bathrooms and all that. And so while it was the culture that we grew up in was the way that it was, I had a mindset to say, okay, well, this is the way it is, but it's not going to stop me from doing what I need to do.
Hey, Vince.
Vince,
unfortunately, I got to cut you short because we're done in a matter of seconds, and we want to have you back. We want you to continue to share your story. We'll have you back next week if you're all good. My apologies, but we definitely want to hear more from you. The great Vince Simmons on our line. Bruce Herron, thank you so very much. 2 former Chicago Bears. It's been a pleasure. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, the Marvelous One, Dan Marver, Lauren Cox, the Rewind Sports 60. Take care, everybody.
Okay, you too.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rewind Sports 60. We are live at 8:20 a.m. in our WCPT studios in Chicago. Please join in on the conversation for the fastest hour in sports, and which really has been one of the most pivotal sports weeks in history, essentially. Give us a call to join in on the sports conversation at 773-763-9278. And we're also streaming live on Facebook at therewindsports60.com. So I want to get right into it and bring in my esteemed panel. I want to start with Dan Marver, the Marvelous One. Dan, what were your thoughts on everything that happened in sports this week?
Well,
what a crazy
week.
In
sports, I'll talk about in sports. The Cubs are 3.5 games ahead in their division, and the Sox are tied with the Indians for first place in sports.
Woohoo!
And the Bucks closed out their series, and the Lakers closed out theirs. So that's what happened in sports.
Okay.
But what happened outside of sports is probably something that the show's going to cover in great depth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we might, and we definitely want to hear your insight on things. And then I have to bring in the amazing, the wonderful Jerry Riles. Jerry, how are you feeling on this historic sports week?
I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. I am exhilarated, and I am thrilled to see your beautiful face, your beautiful smile, and of course the Marvelous One. But it's just great to get an opportunity to sit in the studios of WCPT 820 AM, and of course to rewind, reflect on the past week of sports. And as both of you alluded to, on and off the playing field was quite interesting. There's no question about it, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, the events that took place, and obviously we're talking about the NBA deciding to say, hey, we are not going to play in response to the shooting, the 7 shots that were fired at Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin this week by police officers. The players basically from the NBA, they've said that they've had enough. And I said, it's no way they're going to cancel the season. Too much money. $1 billion we're talking about from the playoffs alone. I knew they weren't going to cancel. Did you all, what were your thoughts when they were saying potentially that they could cancel the season and go back home? And one of the players said, I don't even know why we even came out here.
Yeah, I mean, everything's ultimately about money. I mean, it would have even been worse if they had fans in the stands who they had to give money back to.
Right.
So I thought maybe a team might drop out, but I didn't think that the whole thing would end. And it's good that they're going to finish it. And I completely understand all the ramifications and what happened and whatnot. But again, I'd like to see some definitive solution to this finally, but there won't be one immediately, unfortunately.
No, there's not going to be one because Marvelous.
Yeah.
If there was a solution, I think it would have come across by now.
Yeah.
I think if there was a solution to this whole, confusion and, uproar and division, I think smarter people, level heads would have sat down at the table, met, and they would have come up with a solution that would have benefited, those who are not happy.
I've talked before about legislation, which would be a minor step. I mean, the Republicans and the Democrats have both put forward justice plans, but it's an election year, so nobody's going to agree to anything, unfortunately. It's all politics. I mean, there are a lot of things like no chokeholds and having the police match the demographics of the neighborhood and things of that nature. But, I mean, the one thing that's common in these cases is, I mean, the police didn't just happen upon the situation. I don't know how a domestic abuse call ends up with this result. It doesn't make any sense, except for the obvious conclusion of I don't know what's in the police's mind and heart, but obviously it must be racism is all we can come up with.
Well, I'll tell you what's in their mind and heart.
I mean, I don't know their mind and heart personally, but if you do.
It's the mentality. Yeah. It's the mentality that Black African-American life is inferior, is less than. And it started from slavery. And it's very pervasive as we see today. It's a mindset. And it won't change until we continue to have these dialogues and until we stand up and say enough, which is what the players did. How much more can we take? It's just not enough to just say, hey, when is this going to change? Everybody has to do their part. This is so serious. That man got shot in the back 7 times. I don't care if he had a record. I don't care what, the start of it was. We all know, undeniably, if he was white, he would not be in the hospital paralyzed right now. We just saw it. They were showing reports of a man who was resisting arrest, who he went off on the police and got back in his car and made it home to his family or wherever he had to go. No reason that man should have been shot 7 times with this situation. And the issue is, this is not the only situation. Specifically after what happened with George Floyd, you would think that there would be some type of mentality shift. Obviously not. This is ridiculous.
You mentioned, Lauren, and very well said, you said everyone has to do their part. What do you mean by everyone has to do their part?
For me, one issue that I'm having with this is that, and I see it at work too, I don't feel that people are understand and have the empathy enough to really let's deal with what the problem is. What I've said initially, America historically has had an issue with feeling like African American life is not as valuable, is inferior. Let's stop right there. Everybody needs to wrap their heads around that. I just feel like that's something that white people gloss over, in terms of the mentality and what's really behind this. There's a serious issue, and it's pervasive with us as well as African Americans as well. Obviously so, though, because that's all we've been taught. That's all we know, all we've known since slavery. We are inferior. We are less than. And it starts from there, and it seeps down to the prison system, to the education, to the housing, to the healthcare, to the environment. That's why we have the problem that we have today. And I think more people need to just take ownership with that, let that absorb, and then work from there as in terms of equality, humanity, America. We are supposed to be equal. We are all one. We don't realize it, but we all are one. And it's no way that you can just, as a cop, see this African American, shoot him in the back like that, knowing good and well you would never have done that if he was white.
Marvelous.
I mean, look at the case of Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. You're familiar with that?
17-year-old kid with a gun
from Illinois, or live in Illinois.
Antioch.
So I mean, that underscores your point, because I believe that he ended up going home that night. Did he not?
He certainly did.
Yes, he did.
So that's what's underscores your point just there. So
and here's the deal regarding that is the fact that they handcuffed Jacob to his hospital bed.
Yes, they did. And he's paralyzed.
And it's like, wait a minute, hang on here, hey, whoa, hang on here. Let me take a step back here. Wait a minute, hang on. Now, the one thing, we didn't see the scuffle on the passenger side of the car.
Right.
With the police officers. We see the footage. Well, actually, there was an outlet that actually showed it. And I only saw it that one time, and then they pulled it. But you see him, we've seen it universal all over, where he's walking around the front of the car, and he's trying to get in. And as the officer is grabbing his T-shirt, and he reaches down on the driver's side, you hear the gunshots. Okay, so this guy shot 7 times in the back. He lives. It's unbelievable because I'm hearing reports and I'm like that. This guy lived after getting shot in the back 7 times. But then you have this 17-year-old kid coming from Antioch driving across the state line with this rifle, and they show footage, of course, Facebook Live footage, and he's with his buddy, and they're protecting some auto place, some repair shop or whatever. And then they're met by some protesters, I guess, and one guy is shot, and he dies. And then the next thing you know, you see this 17-year-old kid, Kyle, running down the street. He trips and falls, and you guys seen it all. But the point of the matter is, the National Guard that was in town to try to control everything, this kid, 17 years of age with a rifle, is waving to him and saying, hey, I'm here to protect the business. Not his business. Nobody. I'm here to protect this business. And they say, hey, good. Good. Thank you.
Carry on.
After the shooting, he gets up and again, he's approaching him with his hands up. Let him know what happened, and okay, see you later. Go on home. Take yourself home. You'll be okay. Don't worry about it. Meanwhile, this guy gets
justified.
Meanwhile, this guy gets shot in the back 7 times, and you handcuff him to his bed in the hospital. That makes that clearly and literally makes no sense to me.
It does.
Zero. And, you talk about the controversy regarding this past week in sports, on and off the field, on and off the court, or whatever the case may be. But Brian Urlacher, after all this unfolded, transpired, Brian Urlacher, and we're certainly going to talk about that, he sends out an Instagram message or a tweet or whatever the case may be, quote, Brett Favre played the Monday Night Football game the day his dad died. Threw 4 touchdowns in the first half and was a legend for playing in the face of adversity. NBA players boycott the playoffs because a dude reaching for a knife wanted on a felony sexual assault warrant was shot by police. This is Brian Urlacher, who just went into the Hall of Fame. All his buddies who are black,
the beloved Brian Urlacher,
attended the Hall of Fame induction. And this is
he done snap. Brian Urlacher snapped because he didn't used to be like that.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, how
do you know that?
Obviously, he should know better. I'm surprised, but this isn't the first sus thing that he said. He said something else that was suspect a while back too. There are a lot of professional athletes out there, and we hold them on a high pedestal. We hold them as iconic figures, as gods, and we want to see them in the perfect light. And Brian Urlacher, black baby mama. I'm sorry? Doesn't he have a black baby mama?
Well, that's enough. Well, we can get into that.
We
can get into that.
Talking about that, did you see what Matt Forte responded?
Yes, I certainly did.
What did he say?
I certainly did.
The comment, B. Urlacher 54 posted, is void of empathy, compassion, wisdom, and coherence, but full of pride and ignorance. I pray for those who have been blinded by their wealth, privilege, and earthly fame. That breeds arrogance in their hearts, and those who refuse to. And it's continued. I mean,
here in the world of sports, these athletes are looked upon as iconic, godlike figures. Okay, and so when they're in their clubhouse, the locker room, or whatever the case may be, they don't. Most of them don't look at, especially in the National Football League, don't look at race because they know their livelihood depends on
black man.
That guy. No, again, they don't look at they look at it. Hey, I need this dude to protect me.
Right.
If I'm a quarterback, I need this. If I'm a running back, I need old boy. That's why Walter Payton, may he rest in peace, he would buy his offensive line watches at the end of the season to appreciate them for the work that they've done.
Right.
A lot of these players look at it and say, hey, you know what? I'm in battle with this cat. I don't care if he's black, green, yellow, orange, purple. I don't care. This dude is, especially in the National Football League. But it does not mean
that they're not racist.
Well, there are some racists who have played professional sports, and they have played on the same field as minorities. But when they go home, in their basements, in their garages, in their penthouses, wherever they go, you can believe they're like, look at that coon running up and down there. Look at that monkey over there. I'm promising you, you've had some racists that played professionally, and they've used those terms behind closed doors. But then when they come out in public and they put on that mask that we're wearing, they put on that mask, they come across because they understand it's economics. They understand they're not going to affect their bottom line if they have to endorse a product. They get it. But it doesn't mean that they didn't have this in their DNA, so to speak.
But to me, Jerry, it seems difficult to believe because you think they've gone to war with African Americans. They're close with them. They, have been to their homes and have a close relationship with them versus, quite frankly, in this country, there's a lot of white people that don't even have black friends, that don't even have that close relationship where they can see African Americans up close and really understand that, we are human beings. We are one. Humanity, that aspect of it. How can you still just be blatantly racist and just come out and say some things like that after you have gone to war with, your fellow brother?
Because at the end of the day,
football field.
At the end of the day, you say, hey, you know what? You go on over there, and I'm going over here because I can, and you can't.
And that's even true in Chicago. How it's segregated. I mean, there are people that probably black folks never met white folks. And vice versa.
Yeah, this is why I say it's the greatest city in the world, and I love it. One and top of the list is the fact, it's a sports town, and I love the fact that we all come from different economic backgrounds, nationalities, whatever the case, education, but we all, especially on Sundays in the National Football League, we all get together to root for our beloved Bears, right? Sports does that. It brings everyone together. When the Bulls were winning the championships, it brought the city together as one. And that's why I love it. But the other part of it is, and I tell people all the time, especially people visiting this great city, that you could travel from one end of the city, take Western Avenue, take Ashland Avenue, travel all the way from the north to the south, and you're going to pass through a number of different neighborhoods, whether it's Polish, Italiano, Latino, black, whatever the case may be, in the city of Chicago. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful thing, in my opinion. It's a beautiful thing. But it's also, a detriment. I can remember growing up, in this great town, and, you go over to Comiskey Park, 35th and Shields. As a black man, you have to be kind of careful. Why? Because it was in Bridgeport. And the only pass that I would get, and my friends would get, and my brothers would get, my family, is the fact that we worked at the ballpark as vendors. So if we were working, we got a pass because we were considered a part of the group, the family. But if you weren't, if you had no reason to be around there in Bridgeport, you had some problems. And we still had problems when people knew we worked over there. So it's a great town, but it's a town. It's Chicago, and I say it loosely, the phrase, it's Chicago, the city that works. The city that works against you. You have to understand who you are and where you are. And unfortunately, that's what we're experiencing in this great land that we live in, we call the United States of America. It's unfortunate, and it's a damn shame. I got a theory on why there's so much racism going on in this city in particular regarding minorities, black men, and the police. But let's go out to the phone lines first before I get to that theory. We're going out to Rick, who's calling from DeKalb. Rick, how are you, buddy? Welcome to the Rewind Sports 60.
How you doing? Well, I don't really want to see the Black Lives Matter situation enter into sports. I wish it could be done some other way, but I do absolutely admire and adore our sports heroes. So I understand they have the right to do what they want to do. But what made me call in was there's a meme on WCPT that shows police officers shooting a man walking away in the back, and then it shows that white teenager walking by them unseen, so to speak. And I just thought, this is the problem we have right now in America, is that we can't discuss things in ways that is a discussion. I mean, if we're going to go look at Kyle Rittenhouse, who should not have been there, who should not have been a 17-year-old with any gun, let alone an AR-15, and we compare him to Jacob Blake. I mean, I just don't think that's fair. I don't think there's any reason to do that other than to incite, I guess, lines being drawn, because I don't see the reason for that. I mean, Breonna Taylor. I mean, I think everybody's heart should break for people who are killed and murdered by police officers. There's no way that I, as a person who is not black, should not feel compassion for anybody whose life is ended for disgusting reasons. But to compare Jacob Blake and Kyle Rittenhouse as some kind of bad and good is completely, I think, off base. Well, it doesn't do anything to bring our country together as it should.
Well, here's the deal, Rick, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I'm going to keep you on the line here. I don't think we're necessarily, at least let me speak for myself. I'm not comparing the two gentlemen. I'm comparing the situations that unfolded and the consequences regarding that. And if you and others can't see that there are total differences regarding the situation when it relates to law enforcement in this country, in Chicago, and in Kenosha, to me, there's a little bit more education that needs to go on here, because as you well know, I don't know how old a man you are and you're from DeKalb, but you can believe it in your logical mind. I don't know your level of education, but it does not, and take the color out of it, but it simply does not make sense for an unarmed man who is leaving an area, gets stopped by a group of people, i.e. the law enforcement, who are supposed to serve and protect, to shoot this person 7 times in the back who's no threat. But then you look at this other situation, and you have a guy with a rifle. You say an AR-7?
AR-15.
Yeah. You have a guy with a rifle walking up and down the street. He addresses the military who are protecting the streets and say, hey, I'm okay. I'm here to help you. He shoots 3 people. 2 of them die. He's allowed to get up, get in his car, drive across a state line, go home, and is not arrested until the next day. Take the color out of it. You've got to say to yourself, hey, wait a minute. Something seems kind of off here. Something doesn't seem right. So we're not comparing the two.
I could not agree more. I couldn't agree more.
And that's what we're discussing here.
If you're looking at serving, protecting people, were not the police serving, protecting the sexual assault victim from Jacob, who they had a warrant out for his arrest?
Wait a minute. No. Hang on here. Did they report that he was assaulting this person at the time that they shot him 7 times?
No, of course not.
Of course not. That's the point. That's the point. Lauren said it. Lauren Cox said, I don't care what his record was. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the circumstances that we are aware of at the time that it occurred. We didn't know if we found out that information after the fact. We found that out. Listen. That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. The point.
That's absolutely relevant.
No.
That's why they tried to arrest him.
Listen, I didn't know he had charges against him or whatever the case may be. I didn't know that. This Kyle what's his name? Rottenberg? Rottenberg? What's his name? I didn't know that he's allegedly connected to some white supremacist group. Mm-hmm. I know that. The scenario that I laid out to you, Rick, from DeKalb, right, is that these are 2 instances, 2 circumstances that occurred. One guy who's unarmed, who's leaving the scene, gets apprehended by the cops, and he's shot 7 times in the back, unarmed. This other guy has an arm, and he's walking up and down the streets telling law enforcement, I'm here to help you. He shoots 3 people, 2 of them die, and he's allowed to leave and drive home and get into bed and go to sleep. There's something wrong with Rick. Those two scenarios, I'm not factoring any of the other things that we learned after the fact. I'm giving you two situations that an average, in my opinion, person with a halfway decent education will look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense to me. This does not make any sense to me. If you have a good ripe apple and a rotten apple, which apple are you going to eat? The nice ripe one, or are you going to eat the rotten one? A person with common sense is going to say, hey, you know what? I don't want that one. I want this one. Rick, I love you. Thank you. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. I got to run, Rick. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. We want you to continue to listen and be a part of what we're doing here, buddy.
David Blake is not the healthy apple.
Thank you, brother. I got to tell you, listen, folks, we're going commercial free here. It's the fastest hour in sports conversation. It is the Rewind Sports 60. Yours truly, Jerry Riles. The marvelous one, Dan Marver. The lovely, the talented, the outstanding. She is sensational, and she's going to bring the heat. She's Lauren Cox. And on our TR60 hotline, ladies and gentlemen, you love this guy. He's an iconic figure in the National Football League and, of course, in Chicago. He goes by Duck Coach. He brought us our own Super Bowl some 34, 35 years ago. He's on the TR60 hotline. He's Mike Dicker. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys, but I don't have much power left on my phone, so.
Well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll pay the bills when we have to pay it for you, Coach. But we appreciate you taking some time on this Sunday to come on board and join us. And I tell you, this world of sports that we know, Coach, has been turned upside down, inside and out, and who knows which way it's going to land. But we wanted to get you on our phone lines to talk with you, first and foremost, to see how you're doing, and secondly, get your viewpoint on what's transpired in the world of sports in 2020.
Well, sports is good. I mean, the athletes are bigger, they're better, they're faster. I mean, you look at everything that's going on. These guys are playing the game of football today, playing at a much higher level than we played, even though we had a lot of great players in our time. But it's completely different. It's the man's game.
Hi, Coach. This is Lauren Cox here. I wanted to get your insight on, I'm sure you probably heard about Brian Urlacher's, he's under fire for posting a meme criticizing the NBA players for protesting. When you saw or when you heard, and I'm not sure if you have, Urlacher's comments criticizing the NBA players for protesting, what were your thoughts on that?
I don't pay attention to that stuff. Brian has the right to say what he wants to. If that's what he believes, and that's what he believes. I don't hold that against him. I just think that, guys who are playing in special sports got a heck of a deal. They're making a heck of a lot of money. I would just enjoy it.
Another question for you. We just had a caller who called in, Rick, and he talked about the NBA protesting, and he said that he wished that they could protest in another way. And I wanted to ask him, and I didn't get a chance to, but I'll pose it to you. What way would be comfortable, or what do you think, if you have any thoughts on ways that you think that the players should protest?
So what do they protest?
Injustice, an African-American man getting shot 7 times in the back, and a gazillion others that get shot all the time unjustifiably by the police.
Do you think it's unjustified? I don't know, guys. I mean, you're talking about something now that you're pulling this out of the air. You don't know the circumstances. I don't know the circumstances. I don't agree with shooting anybody. But I don't know. I don't know how you would say it is right or wrong or otherwise. The police have a job to uphold law and order. That's their job. Now, do they make mistakes? Yes, they do. But I think if you look at the percentages, they do a pretty good job.
Coach, here's what the whole issue is. All right. Here's why the protestings are going on. Here's why players are boycotting. Here's why, not only in the National Football League, Major League Baseball, the NBA, and of course, the National Hockey League, soccer, the whole 9 yards. It's the fact that there are things that are occurring. Now, there are 75% of African American or minorities playing in the National Football League. 75% of the players in the NBA are African American or minority men. So they are the ones who are getting very well paid as far as what they're doing because of their talents and their skill set. But the other 99% of us, we got to earn a living, and we got to find a way to do that. So when the circumstances are not presented to you on a plain, even level playing field, and in some cases they end in death, the 1% that has made it out, the less than 1%, are saying, hey, you know what? We got to do something here, because for the grace of God, there go I. And that's the problem, Coach. These players who are making the money that they're making and on the stage and the platform that they're on are saying, hey, you know what? We have to represent the people who have not made it, who are still struggling. And this is a way for us to get our point across, get our message across. And for anyone who does not see that or understand that, it lends to bring about some pain. And that's the problem that these players have, and the community as a whole have, with management, people in authority, and people who make decisions aren't meeting at the table to try to come up with a solution.
Well, you're probably right. You know, there's some things you said there are probably right. I mean, I think they should work hard enough to. You know, pro sports is a tremendous thing. It pays a lot of people a lot of money. It's good for a lot of people. Enjoy it. You have a God-given talent. Not everybody has the talent to dribble a basketball, shoot a basketball, catch a football, or hit a baseball. You got a talent. Thank God for it. Enjoy it. And do it in peace.
No, so Coach, here's the deal. And I love you on with the great Coach Mike Dicker of your Super Bowl winning Chicago Bears, the 85 Bears, Super Bowl 20. Coach, here's the deal. You are an advocate. You are out front for the retired players who can't take care of themselves because of the game of football. You are very outspoken in those players who can't speak for themselves, who either literally can't talk, their mental CTE, the mental capacity has diminished considerably, their bodies are broken down, and you're out front saying, listen, we need to take care of these guys because this sport has given us the livelihood that we have today. But unfortunately, there are players in the past, in your era, before your era, and after your era, who financially aren't prepared. They can't take it. Physically, they're breaking down. And you want to make sure that things are done right and properly for those guys because they paid the way. And that's what these athletes in this protest and these boycotts are doing. They said, listen, it's beyond us now. This is our community. What do you say to that? Because you're doing the same thing.
I'm not saying they're right or wrong. Listen to me. I don't know what they are, right or wrong. I know that they have a right to dignity. Everybody has a right to dignity. And if they don't think they're getting dignity, then you got to let the protest. But you make a lot of money, guys. You're making a lot of money. You can't make that kind of money doing anything else. You cannot make the kind of money you make in sports doing anything else.
No. Yeah, I agree.
Then I said it. That's it.
Okay.
So, be grateful. Enjoy the opportunity. You got. Thank God. Every day when you wake up, thank God. Hey, man, I got great talent. I'm using them. I'm making a lot of money. I can take care of my family. Enjoy it.
Hey, Coach, this is Dan in the studio. Before your battery goes dead, I wanted to ask you quickly about the kneeling. I assume you feel the same way, that they have a right to...
I don't think it's right. I think it's a privilege to live in this country. I think our flag is a symbol of freedom and opportunity and all the good things. And I think that I don't know why. The kneeling thing I don't understand, so I really shouldn't comment on it.
No, I understand, Coach, and that's the problem here, because we all, you live in this country, you've grown up, learning the national anthem and our pledge of allegiance to the flag and all of that stuff. But, Coach, here's the difference here. Here's the big difference, and this is why we wanted to have you on to get your thoughts and get your perspective on what's affecting not only this great city that we live in, but this country that we live in and the world that we live in, Coach. And those players that you talked about, you had some fantastic players on that Super Bowl team, whether it's Walter Payton, Willie Gault, Galt, Mike Singletary, Otis Wilson.
Okay.
But listen, Coach. Here's what we want you to understand and want others to understand, that as an African American man living in this country, playing in the greatest game in the world, in my opinion, playing professional sports, and all the money that you make, at the end of the day, you still walk out of your door every single day as a black man, and you have to wonder what kind of racism I'm going to experience today because of the color of my skin. And that's the problem, Coach. The great Walter Payton.
Okay.
Coach.
I hear you.
Coach. So here's
That's the problem.
So how do we do it? Because, Coach, you didn't help the situation, Coach. And I love you to come on with us. But you didn't help the situation when you said, if you don't like this country, get the hell out of it. You didn't help. Oh, he hung up?
Oh, did we lose him?
Devin, call him back. Call him back.
Battery died.
No, he did say his phone was going to die. But we got to talk to Coach off the ledge and let him understand. It's bigger than playing again, the greatest sport in the world, in my opinion. That's the National Football League. I love it. But if you're a professional athlete making all this money, it doesn't make the grass green on the other side for everybody else.
And that's what Jared Kushner came out and said, too. And I think it's interesting that people want to say how much money they make. That didn't stop, was it Michael Bennett when he was in Las Vegas and the police basically, who knows what they would have done to him if they hadn't found out.
Yeah.
Also, the Milwaukee Bucks player, Sterling, same thing. They don't care about the money that you make. That's the point that I was talking about earlier. It's the mindset. They don't know every single player if he's not LeBron or, someone recognizable like that. At the end of the day, all they see is inferiority.
That's
a
it.
black man.
And that's
the problem.
Right. And that's the message that we have to convey not only to the coach, but anyone out there listening to the program, is that, and these players say, hey, man, listen, at the end of the day, I'm a black man. And I have to, every single day, when I wake up and open my eyes and then I go outside, I have to wonder, in a 24-hour period of time, or however long I'm out there, but when am I going to experience some sort of racism just for the color of my skin? And that's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all of your life.
And they've experienced it.
Here's the deal. I went to a concert a few years ago over at the Rosemont Theater, my buddy and I, Chris Rock. And he was talking, this is when Hillary was running all that good stuff, blah, 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 blah. He was funny as hell. It was hilarious. But Chris Rock said, hey, he said, turn up the lights. Turn up the lights. He turned up the lights.
Yeah, he clearly hung up on us. I've been calling. It's ringing.
He turned up the lights. He turned up the lights. He said, is there any, he goes, y'all know how rich I am. He goes, where I live, there are only like 3 of us. Me, Mary J. Blige, and somebody else. Denzel. I think Denzel had a place. He said, it's just the 3 of us. He said, his neighbor is a dentist. He said, my next door neighbor's a dentist. Mm-hmm. He goes, y'all know how rich I am. He goes,
those dentists, they make money.
Right? He's like, who the hell is he? But in any case, he said, is there any white person in the audience that would trade places with me? Now, he asked them to turn up the house lights. He said, is there anybody in here that would trade places with me? The white people got so uncomfortable. They were looking around. They were, because you got to face it. All the tragedies and injustices and everything that these guys are standing up for and kneeling for, whatever the case may be, there's no person in the world would substitute their life to take on that life. There's not. And he said, for 24 hours, would you trade places with me, knowing how rich I am, for 24 hours?
I wouldn't even trade places with you, Jerry. No.
That was a fat nerves, buddy.
Hey, listen. In spite of everything else, I mean, the one thing that is bad that I'm upset about is the looting and the rioting. I mean, that's bad too, don't you admit? I mean, that's.
But do you understand the message behind the looting and the rioting? Because think about this.
And we don't even know what's all going on with all this looting and rioting.
This is another thing I want to say to you. Listen, and when I say you, not just you, Marvelous, but here's the deal. And the one thing I didn't mention the coach, and he hung up on us. He hung us on, and we tried to reach him back, but he didn't. So that's fine. The fact that he came on, that's all good. But the coach also said, before all this happened, that black people have not been oppressed in this country for over 100 years. He said that there's no oppression for black people in 100 years.
Since slavery ended.
Since what they're complaining about.
Okay.
But here's the deal: when everybody's talking about, oh, look at the looting, look at the rioting. Joe Biden said, "Hey, listen. When you see the Charleston, was it Charleston where the white supremacists came out with the pitchforks and the torches and everything, right? When you see the looting and the rioting going on, Magnificent Mile or whatever the case may be, I don't condone it, not one bit. But if you go back to the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, and we're not even talking about Black Wall Street, white America has been rioting and looting in the black community since slavery, even before slavery. You've had white people marching with pitchforks, torches in black communities, burning them down, raping their women, lynching the kids.
Ku Klux Klan, basically, right?
They were the leaders.
Yeah, okay.
But there were people that look, they're white, who if you saw them Monday through Friday, you wouldn't suspect that they were a part of the white supremacist group. My point being is, all this looting and rioting that you're seeing today, right now, it's been happening in this country to black America for years. But it was accepted and it was encouraged. They used to have lynchings on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon where white America would go to the park because Tyrone Hill, and I don't mean Tyrone Hill, the former basketball player, but Tyrone Doe is going to get lynched at 12 o'clock noon on Sunday. Exactly. Put on your Sunday best. Let's go. Get your picnic basket. We're going to see ourselves a lynching. So when you talk about the rioting and the looting that's taking place today because a group of people are fed up with being fed up and being treated unfairly, you got to look at yourselves and say, hey, wait a minute. And you go, hey, I didn't do that. Well, your grandmother did it. Your grandfather did it. Your great-grandmother did it. Your great-grandfather did it. And that trickles down to what we experience and what we see in today's society.
And we must not juxtapose the people and what they did at Michigan Avenue with the Black Lives Matter movement in terms of peaceful protesting. It's peaceful protest is going on every day, all day long.
Well, let me say this to you. Let me say this to you. And
okay, that's totally different than people trying to steal stuff and using an excuse. Those are two separate issues, and people need to understand and have so much vitriol and passion about slavery as they did about the rioting.
When you protest anything, protest doesn't call for peace. Protest does not. There's no peaceful way. Oh, you can walk up and down the street with your little sign and everything.
Right.
But when you're talking about protesting, you are opposed to something that is not right. And you've been trying to tell people, that's why you've gotten to the level of protesting, because it's the information that you're supplying those in power has fallen on deaf ears. And so when you talk about protests, that means you're going to do whatever it takes to get your message across to the people who can make a decision. So peaceful protesting, people peaceful protest all the time. They peaceful protest all the time. They see it doesn't get them anywhere, and so they say, we've got to take protest to the level where it's meant to be.
Yeah.
to wake some people up and to get them to do something.
Because after those Milwaukee Bucks players, after they decided not to play, it was a lot of attention brought to the situation, obviously, and people say, well, I wish they didn't protest in that way, which I asked Coach Dicker which way would be comfortable for you for them to protest. But they were able to get on the phone. They had their owner get on the phone with some of the legislators and talk about some legislative changes that were like in the books that hadn't came to fruition yet. So that situation was enough where they had the eyes and the voice, the ear of the people in power to say, okay, what do we need to do? And, it just baffles me that people are saying, well, I wish they wouldn't do it in that way. We've been trying to do it in every other way for hundreds of years, and we have the same problem today as we've had 100 years ago.
Right. It's marvelous.
Well, as I was saying before, there was an attempt in the legislative branch, which wouldn't be the end-all and be-all, where the two sides can't get together. Actually, Tim Scott of South Carolina, the African-American gentleman, put through a bill, and the Republicans in the House put through a bill, and you'd think they could talk to each other, like Cory Booker even, and Tim Scott could get together. It would be beautiful. I mean, that would be a start, but it doesn't happen. That upsets me, too.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. It's politics, and these are professional politicians, right. And they negotiate to get their upper hand, and that's where we are regarding that. Our number here is 773-763-9278. Is that it? 9878? What's the number? I'm just, who knows?
9278.
9278. It's the Rewind Sports 60. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, the beautiful, talented, lovely, and outstanding Lauren Cox, and the marvelous one, Dan Marver. I wanted to share with you guys and girls who are listening in, my theory on why we have the division that we have in this great city of ours, related to the CPD, Chicago Police Department, and of course the black and brown communities, in particular the Inglewood area and the Austin area. And this is my theory. I went to St. Rita High School over there when it was on 63rd and Claremont, and I was one of 6 blacks to graduate from there. Okay, they're probably, I'm stretching it, they're probably like 30, 35 of us overall.
How many people were in your graduating class?
890 something or whatever. Okay? So, but my point being is, if you're familiar with the Catholic League, you're familiar with, there weren't many blacks during this time that were there, okay? So I went to school with a lot of these white cats. Irish, Italian, Catholic. I went to school with them. So I was accepted because I'm Jerry Riles, first of all, but but the point is, I was able to learn the culture, okay, of my white brethren on the South Side, and they were able to learn a little bit about me. But I was always, well, you're not like them, or you're different, or you're not one of them. Meaning I wasn't, black because I was cool. I was, I was accepted, right, even though I was still black. You take those guys, and we're talking about 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and their mentality. I learned a lot of things going to that school that I was blown away. I was like, wow, people live like this, and people do this stuff, and all this. My point being is, you take the Catholic League, you take the public leaguers, because the public leaguers used to come over and, beat up the Catholic leaguers because they thought, we wore ties and all that stuff. But you take the Catholic leaguers, you take the public leaguers, and they grow up, and then you take the suburbanites who have no clue about city people, and they become people in power and position. So that mentality carries over from their high school days of being a Catholic leaguer, and Catholic leaguers stick together. And public leaguers, I guess, stick together. I'm not a public leaguer, but they stick together. And so when they get into power, a position of power, that mentality carries over.
Continues, yeah.
It carries over. So a lot of Catholic leaguers get jobs in the city because, you went to Mendel, you went to Leo, you went to Quigley, you went to Rita, you went to Lawrence, even though we have our own in-house fighting. But then you got someone from CVS, a Simeon, a Hubbard, or Curie, whatever the case may be. You're right. You got to hate. Or Kenwood. You're like, wait a minute. You're a public leaguer. Get your ass on over there. And now you got suburbanites coming in from Niles West and New Trier and, Naperville. And you're like, hey, you're not one of us. You're not a part of us. And so that's where dissension comes in. And when you have that mentality and it trickles down over to the police force, you're a white Irish Catholic police officer. And I'm not saying it's for all of them, but I'm just saying the mentality. And you look at some black guy from Austin neighborhood or the Inglewood neighborhood who is a dropout from public league, you're like, this guy's a bum, he's a loser, he's a no good, he's out here destroying the neighborhood. Let's kick his ass. That's my theory. That's my opinion. That's what I believe. I see what's going on here.
So, all right, so Mitch is the guy. I mean, I guess the easiest way to ask it is why? Based on last year and everything that happened this summer, and you bring all these coaches in that you trust and have worked with Nick before, but never Mitch. So what did Mitch do to ultimately lead you guys to this consensus decision that he's the guy in week 1?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I was shocked that's the first question there, Jeff. So as we said this whole time, this was going to be a fair battle. And for both of these guys, we're going to roll the ball out and let them play. And just like we've said this whole, the rest of camp, both these guys were really battling their tail off every single day. And that's not easy. It's a lot easier when you have the job and, you play a little different because it's always in the back of your mind. But to Mitch's credit and Nick's credit, the way they handled it, I was really proud of them for it. In the end, Mitch won the job. And I think that that's very important for him, for us, for everybody to understand that he worked really hard to get to this point. We know that we all, in a lot of different areas, struggled in 2019. And so what I think was most impressive from the end of the season until this past weekend was to be able to see some of the growth in practice and off the field that Mitch had. He decided to just control what he can control. He didn't worry about distractions. He didn't worry about other competition. What he did is just tried to worry about getting better as a quarterback. Now, with that said, right, he now and we now together need to do that on game day. And that's where when you lose the preseason games and you lose some of the OTAs, you lose some of that evaluation process. But for him to come through like he did, I'm excited for him. We are really excited for this team. And then with that said, I also want to give a lot of credit to Nick Foles for coming in here and under strange circumstances. He's had an interesting career, and coming off of last year with an injury, he comes in with no off season, on the field, and really a shortened training camp. So these guys battled, and neither one of them complained. They just did what they were supposed to do. And now here we are. They're excited. They're ready. Mitch is just in a really great place. And I think what was important, I think it's important for you guys to know too, with Nick, it's not easy when you're competitive and when one person has to get named the starter. But Nick ended his conversation with me the other day when I told him what we're going to do with, can I call Mitch and congratulate him? And if that doesn't speak to who he is as a human being, I think there's some realness that y'all need to understand what kind of guy he is. And then the next part he said is, I'm going to help him with the schedule, with how we do things during the week. And I'm going to, do everything I can to make him the greatest quarterback he can be, and that we can be for this team. And then if needed, you're going to get my best, and we go. And so sometimes that's really hard for people to do, but Nick has that in him. And Mitch texted me later on that night and was just really excited that he got that phone call from Nick. And that just goes to show what kind of competition we had and where we're at. Ultimately, we need to win games, right? And we don't want to lose fact on that. So that's kind of the long-winded story on how we got to where we got to.
JJ Stankovitz.
Matt, as you were evaluating this decision in the last couple of days, was there a discussion at all about Mitch's previous success against Detroit and that may be playing a factor? And then additionally, with him, just now that you're a week out from the game, where's your level of excitement to try out some of the offensive tweaks you and Coach Laser and Coach DiFilippo have put in this offseason with Mitch on the field on Sunday?
Right. Yeah, JJ. So the play in Detroit had nothing to do with the decision for us. This is something that has a lot more to do than that first game, although I would understand just because of some of his success that he's had. So I get the question. And then really for us in general, just being able to try to decide and create what we want our identity to be as an offense, that has been fun as well. Every year is always a little bit different. You see that with some teams, and we have what we think is our core of what we like and what we've always done. And then you always test a few different things. So we'll see where it ends up going. When you just get selfishly look at offense, we got to score points, right? We got to protect the football and score points. And that's got to be our main focus.
Colleen Kane.
Hey, Matt, how will you determine how much patience to have with Mitch going forward if there are bumps here and there, given that you know you have a capable backup on the bench?
Right. Yeah. I think for a lot of people, that's probably one of the biggest questions that people will ask in these type of situations. But for us, there's just an excitement of, hey, let's look at the glass half full. Let's be optimistic, and let's just worry about that. And if we do that, then you have way less distractions, way less things to think about. And now you have to, in the off season, that's when you have all your time to be able to try to put together scenarios that could happen and would happen. But right now, there's just a really good vibe in our building throughout our team. And we just getting back today from our 10-10-10 practice, you could just feel the juice and the energy from having a couple of days off. I like where we're at. So we're looking for nothing but positivity and trying to win as many games as we can and score points on offense.
Jason Leisure.
Matt, was there anything unexpected with Foles, or was he in any way not the player you thought you were trading for?
No, not at all. Jason, what I think, I look back to, I think y'all asked me this question months ago I think while we were kind of in those Zoom meetings, somebody asked me, they said, do you think that not having the OTAs and possibly a shortened training camp could hurt Nick? And I said, no, I don't think so. But I do think that because of circumstances of having less time on the field, which is some timing for him and wide receivers, and just the comfort level of learning some of the things that we do. Now that I look back, I think that probably affected some things. And then you have a shortened summer with training camp as well with reps, but that doesn't discredit or take anything away from Mitch. But at the same time, there is also a little bit of what you're asking, Jason, is there. I think there is some of that there with some time. I think, he could have been in situations where he performed and really could have went one way or the other, but it didn't. And that's where we're at. And he understands that. He knows that. And he's a true pro.
Dan Wiederer.
Matt, when you guys got behind closed doors and tried to get to the final decision on this, specifically, where did you see Mitch separating himself and distinguishing himself from Nick?
Yeah, again, so I could get specifically into some of the football part of it, the X's and O's side of for him. I thought he really finished strong, which was good to finish strong with some really accurate throws in the red zone. He did some things. I told you all along his footwork has been much better in the pocket in regards to staying up in that pocket and hitching up there. Decision-making has been improved. So we're always working to try to get that better. And he knows that. You could feel the command. And I think the difference in the command that I felt and that our coaches felt was it's one where it's just very natural. It wasn't made up. It wasn't being told from somebody how to act. It was just very organic. And you can tell that with guys when they are natural with that. And I thought he improved there. So for him, when he gets this opportunity like he has right now, you could just feel it that he's ready to get out there and just really play hard for his teammates.
Pat Finley.
Hey, Matt, should we interpret the fact that you guys haven't picked up any running backs as a good sign for Montgomery? And what's your level of confidence in him a week from now?
Yeah, again, it's a sly way to try to ask me an injury question, but I'll give it to you. I'll talk to you on Wednesday about that. But, we do feel good with our running back room right now.
Chris Emma.
Hey, Matt, when we last spoke to you on Wednesday, you talked about the difficulty of making this decision, that it wasn't going to be a clear-cut decision. What happened that really sold you and led you to the conviction that Mitch is a different quarterback and that he's the guy for this job?
Yeah, so as everything, remember, too, I told you we're going to go back and we're going to watch some of the tape on the guys and see from both of them where they're at. We're going to go back and look at the numbers that we have from every single rep. I mean, it would blow you guys away to see how equal things were repetition wise. And so for Bill Lazor and Dave Ragone and flipping those guys to script the way they did to try to give that equality, it was there. And so then you go back, you watch the film, you talk through kind of the growth that they both have. And you say, okay, hey, when you look at this thing, right, from the beginning, Mitchell's been through some stuff now. He's had an interesting, first 3 years to his career. And at the end of the year, it was a tough year for us this year. And then all of a sudden, hey, by the way, we're going to make a trade for a quarterback that happened to be a Super Bowl MVP. And then, by the way, we're not going to do your 5th-year option, right? There's a lot of that's not easy. And so now you talk to both of these guys and you tell them, we're going to make this competition extremely fair. And we're going to be honest and open. We're going to communicate. And we're going to let you guys go play it out. And I think from both of them, the only thing that they both asked was that it was fair. And so when we look back to that question, we say to ourselves, did we make it fair? And now, who won the job? And that's how we, as we collaborate, that's how we feel. But then ultimately, it's my decision to make that final decision on who it is. And so I think that we feel really good about it. I know, Mitch is obviously excited. And then to have the support from Nick in that situation isn't always easy. And the 1.5-hour conversation that I had with Nick when I broke the news to him, just to be able to talk through everything and just like where things are at. I mean, he's just a special person. And the way he handled that was really cool.
Just a couple more here for Coach. Deion Miller.
Matt, you just said that and explained Mitch has been through a lot. Do you think some of those realities have kind of calloused him to the point where you have more confidence that the growth you've seen will be more consistent this year than it's been in the past?
I hope so, Deion, because here's how I look at this thing. We're in a really crazy world right now. And, there's a lot of bad stories out there. There's a lot of negativity out there. And so here we are in a profession where there can be a lot of good stories. And I just think, to me, like, you have an opportunity here to have a really, really cool story. Is it going to happen? I don't know. But you have somebody that's been through a lot in the sports world, had some highs and has had a lot of lows. And he's worked his tail off to now win this job and have an opportunity to prove a lot of people right. If you struggle, seeing that and understanding that, then that's your own opinion. But here we are, and now here he has an opportunity, and let's see where it goes. And now he has the ball, and he's able to do what he wants with this, and we're going to all support and surround him and give him every opportunity to have a very happy ending.
Last one, Stacey Dales.
Hey, Coach, I have 2 questions for you. Just one, organically, what was Mitch's reaction with you in person? And then the second question, unfortunately, things go negative, right? People go to that place mentally. If Mitch, people are going to ask, if Mitch plays poorly at any point, are you going to make a change? Like, what do you say to those people that are already going in that direction mentally, going to be keeping tabs on if he plays poorly or he doesn't?
Sure. No, they're good questions. Mitch was, this was a situation when I told the story. He wasn't sure, as I was explaining to him what everything that he's been through to this point. And he was sitting in my office, and it was just him and I, and we're talking, and I'm explaining everything to him. And I guess I took too long to get to the point, because when I told him that he's going to be the starter, he at first was like, I think he told me he was waiting, like, man, are you gonna say, but? I mean, the way you're dragging this out, but he was fired. He just knows he's in a really good place right now. I don't know how to explain it. I think, I don't want to use the word expected, but he knows that he played well in camp. And when you do that, you just want a fair opportunity. And so he didn't get overexcited. He just was calm and cool. And I think right now I said it earlier, he's kind of got this laser focus going on right now, and he's not letting a lot of stuff derail him one way or the other. And that's a credit to him because he's worked for that. So that's that. And then in regards to the second part of the question, it always is that. And anytime you're talking about, especially a situation like this, it's very easy because it's a storyline to go right to, well, is somebody going to fail? And then who's in that? Because now there's more stories and it's drama. We can't live in that drama world right now for us. We got to worry about Detroit on September 13th. And we're just, man, in such a really good spot as a team. The offense gets all the talk right now because of this, but our whole offense, defense, special teams, our coaches, I'm not sure we've been much stronger. And through everything that's going on right now, we're at a pretty good level of togetherness. So I know that we're all going to support each other.
That's it for the day. Appreciate the time, Coach.
All right. Thank you.